Toronto's leading investment firm signing off on a deal that will significantly expand its reach into Canada's luxury real estate market. Here to talk about what Peerage Capital's acquisition of Sotheby's means for the real estate sector, Don Kottick. He's Peerage executive and soon to be the CEO of Sotheby's International Realty Canada. Thanks for joining us, Don.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me.
So why at this point in the real estate cycle and everything that we've been through in Canada would Peerage make this move in terms of Sotheby's?
Well, I think Peerage views the real estate market as a fundamentally sound environment right now. I mean, we've always loved the luxury space, and we feel that there's a change that's happening in the market right now. There's a polarization that's occurring, and so on one end of the market you have kind of the premium luxury, the premium service, and then on the other end you have the iBuyers, the low fees, and the other end of the market. And so I think at the end of the day, the consumers are going to need a trusted advisor, a professional. Regardless of what happens, we believe that that is always going to be the case. You hear talk about disintermediation, but the reality is the trusted advisor is here to stay. Even if blockchain, comes about, you're still going to need that trusted advisor. So we believe that this area of the market is going to be the most stable, most resilient, and the place to be for the future.
As we look across the country, from the heat that we had several years ago to the pullback we've seen in real estate, Vancouver still seems to be in a pretty significant slump, and the luxury market as well. How do you see Vancouver playing out in terms of luxury compared to Toronto or Montreal or other markets?
Well, I think if you take Vancouver, they have a lot of challenges right now. I mean, there's a lot of regulatory changes, there's a lot of government changes, and it's a very cyclical market. And we're hoping now, I've talked to a few people out there, that they're starting to see indicators that things are starting to move in the right direction. So, you saw the recent stats, they were not very attractive. So there are indicators that are saying, you know what, we're starting to improve, which is a really good sign. And then if you go to, right now, if you go to Ontario and Quebec, those markets are actually performing very well. You look at the TREB stats that just came out, very strong. You look at Montreal, they've been very strong. We're starting to see more interest from international money in the Toronto and Quebec markets that kind of disappeared for a little while when a lot of these new regulations came about. So it does look like, things are moving in the right direction.
I've been hearing actually from people in the industry, both anecdotally and in interviews on the show, that when it comes to Vancouver and international money, Chinese buyers in particular are almost, I guess, offended would be the word, offended by everything they've seen in that market, and they don't want to put their money to work in there. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I've heard rumors to that effect, but I still think, there is still some money coming in. Canada is a world-class country. It's a great place to live, and a lot of people believe that if things are at the bottom, there's opportunity. So people have to move for whatever reason. There's always going to be product coming on the market, and there's always opportunity. So maybe a few people are complaining, and it could be the government that is creating these waves. But I think the reality is people see opportunity at different points of the market, and if properties are priced right, they're going to sell.
I'm not sure if you were able to see it or hear about the coverage afterwards, but Evan Siddall, the head of the country's housing agency, was on BNN Bloomberg yesterday. Very interesting comments, and the one that I think struck me the most is he was talking about the party won't last forever in Canadian real estate and that we have to get over our obsession with home ownership. How does that strike you to hear those kind of words from the head of the housing agency?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think, I sit on the Canadian Real Estate Association, and there were some studies that have come out recently that basically say, millennials really want to own homes, and the majority of Canadians still want to own homes. So regardless of what you hear, there is that, kind of eternal Canadian, need to own a home. So people can say whatever they want. They can say, we're shifting to a renting environment. The thing is, everybody wants a home, and I don't see that really changing. I mean, affordability is an issue, and I think if we come up with creative ways to address some of the affordability issues, then more people come in the market. It's about supply and demand, and the buyers and consumers have to adapt accordingly. So I'm not, I think we're still sitting in an environment where home buying buying still is one of the most important choices a person is going to make.
The fact that it came from the head of the Canada's housing agency, that's what really caught me, right? A lot of people have made those kind of comments before, renting versus owning, and the fact that Evan Siddall said it, does that put CMHC somewhat at odds with the Canadian Real Estate Association, with the actual industry itself?
Well, I can't speak for the Canadian Real Estate Association, but I can tell you, like, from my personal involvement in the industry, I mean, there's different mandates, right? And then you have to come back to reality, and the reality is people want to own homes, right? And even if you go to London, even where sometimes they're priced so high, it's still an aspiration, and so it may involve creative ways if prices go the way of New York and London, which, we're not there yet. We've got a long ways to go. But I think home buying is always going to be integral to our society.
Very interesting. Thanks for joining us, Don.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was Don Kottick. He's a Peerage executive and soon to be the CEO of Sotheby's International Realty Canada. Still to come, the Art Gallery of Ontario is looking to attract a younger demographic, offering free admission to those under 25.